Welcome to this Wednesday faith moment. Can't believe, I thought I'm quite fit and I thought I won't have any trouble with this vaccine. But here I am, I'm still feeling dizzy 4 days later and losing my balance every now and then. So if I'm a bit off tonight, I apologise, but there we go. Now I've called this one Pieces of 8. Do you remember Treasure Island, Robbie Louis Stevenson? Pieces of 8. He was Captain Flint, that parrot, who sat on the shoulder of Long John Silver, the pirate with one leg. Pieces of 8. And it's this word pieces that we're going to look at tonight. We're in January, and often in January I'm reading Genesis, and I've reached the story of Joseph. Let me read a bit to you. Reuben, one of his brothers, said to the other brothers, "Shed no blood. Throw Joseph into this pit here in the wilderness, but lay no hand on him." Reuben had planned to rescue Joseph and take him back to his father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, he was taking them food out in the fields. They stripped him of his robe of many colours, the long robe with sleeves that he wore, and they took him and threw him into a pit. The pit was empty. There was no water in it. Then they sat down to eat, and looking up they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, with their camels carrying gum, balm and resin, on their way to carry it down to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, "Remember, Joseph had 11 brothers. Jacob was the father. What profit is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him, for he is our brother, our own flesh." And his brothers agreed. And when some Midianite traders passed by, they drew Joseph up, lifted him out of the pit, and they sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they took Joseph to Egypt. It was this 20 pieces of silver that just made me think for a minute of Jesus' betrayal and the fact that Judas received pieces of silver. But I couldn't remember for a moment, was it 20 pieces of silver or 30 pieces of silver? So I looked up the references, and surprisingly the actual mention of the pieces of silver is only in one of the Gospels. But let's just read for a moment about the Last Supper and what Jesus said. I mean, it must be heartbreaking to think of Joseph and his brothers want to kill him. All these brothers, older than him, don't like the arrogance of this young man. But to actually kill your brother, After saying this, Jesus was troubled in spirit and declared, "Very truly, I tell you, one of you will betray me." The disciples looked at one another, uncertain of whom he was speaking. One of his disciples, the one whom Jesus loved, was reclining next to him. Simon Peter therefore motioned to him to ask Jesus of whom he was speaking. So while reclining next to Jesus, he asked him, "Lord, who is it?" Jesus answered, "It is the one to whom I give this piece of bread when I have dipped it in the dish." Same for Jesus, isn't it? The thought that he has appointed his disciples and one should betray him. Only one of Joseph's brothers wanted to save him, Reuben. Life's sad, isn't it? It's amazing that the nation of Israel is built round these characters, that the New Testament is built round these disciples. And then we have the reading from Matthew chapter 27. When morning came, all the chief priests and elders of the people conferred together against Jesus in order to bring about his death. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate, the governor. And when Judas, his betrayer, saw that Jesus was condemned, he repented and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and to the elders. 30 pieces of silver. To sell someone for that. It's the price of a slave. Joseph. For him, the price of going into slavery. Each of those, 20 to 30 pieces of silver is equal to 1 piece of 8. A piece of 8 is a Spanish dollar, apparently, worth £250 or thereabouts. That's in today's money. He said, "I have sinned by betraying innocent blood." But they said, "What is that to us? See to it yourself." Throwing down the pieces of silver in the temple, he departed, and he went and sadly hanged himself. But the chief priests, taking the pieces of silver, said, "It's not lawful to put them into the treasury, since they are blood money." And after conferring together, they used them to buy the potter's field as a place to bury foreigners. It's strange. Joseph from Egypt ended up the right-hand man to Pharaoh. The brothers came seeking food in the famine and bowed down to him. And he forgave them. But with Jesus, we are forgiven by the price that he paid. He paid it in 3 ways, really. He was sold as a slave for 30 pieces of silver. He died in place of Barabbas. And he died for us on the cross. He died for our sins that we might be forgiven. All this for 30 pieces of silver. I forgot the ending of Treasure Island. So, for 49p on Kindle, I have the book and I'm reading it again. I might not be up to my granddaughter's standard who's reading Victor Hugo, but reading Treasure Island's not bad for me. God bless. Till next week.